Good morning, everyone. Today we're checking out a brand new video from the Film Fest about the Inside Out 2 emotions are all wrong. Let's hop in and see what he means by this.
One of these emotions shouldn't be an inside out. If you look at the science, the real world psychology, and find the best models to fit an adult brain, yeah, this wouldn't be how it looks. And one of these emotions is getting demoted. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that asks...
Do you ever look at someone and wonder what is going on inside their head?
So, in a year where we desperately needed a box office hit, I'm not sure anyone expected Pixar to come along and be the heavy hitters with Inside Out 2. This is a studio that has struggled with all of its releases since the pandemic, but Inside Out 2, it's the fastest an animated movie has ever hit $1 billion, and it's not slowing down. Also, can I ask, is it weird that all of the successful animation recently has put its main characters through panic attacks? Like Anxiety has one here, Puss in Boots had one, Spider-Man had one, Mario basically had one. Maybe we're making these movies too #relatable. If you don't know, Inside Out is all about the emotions inside of the head of a girl named Riley. Joy, sadness, disgust, fear, and anger. Together, they basically pilot Riley, helping her navigate her life and appropriately react to the situations put in front of her.
Tone and action.
Here comes an airplane.
Oh, airplane. We got an airplane, people.
While also keeping track of and organizing her memories. Memories are represented by glass balls, each glowing a color that corresponds to what type of memory it is. A happy memory, like watching WALL-E for the first time, it's yellow, like joy. But a sad memory, like watching Madame Web for the first time, it's blue, like sadness, etc., etc. But with Inside Out 2, Riley has grown a bit older and has now hit puberty, and you know what that means. A whole host of new, more complex emotions beyond the first 5 are introduced. For this movie, we have anxiety, envy, embarrassment, and ennui. That's boredom for us non-French speakers. With the hint that they're...
Why didn't they just... You know, I guess it makes sense. You would not want to call a character boredom, because... I guess it's just not catchy.
There are plenty of more emotions to come. A joke in the film has an emotion called nostalgia show up, though she's about 10 years too early and shouldn't be getting to Riley's head until her 20s.
Remember when we all finally came up to headquarters?
That was like 30 seconds ago, nostalgia.
But in the theater, this whole setup got my theorist cogs a turnin', so new emotions are showing up as Riley ages, and there are more on the way? For me, this really started to beg the question, is this what would actually happen? Yeah, today we're doing one of those classic how right was the movie theories and asking how accurate is Inside Out. If we wanted to take a look at real-world psychology and make a scientifically real version of Inside Out, what would the emotions in Riley's head actually be? And more important,
I can already go ahead and tell you that during our teen years, it would be way too damn full by the time he's at least 20 or so. Oh, a lot of those emotions are being demoted and kicked out.
Certainly, using that knowledge, what would come next for the Inside Out franchise? Yeah, this movie made $1 billion in 2 weeks. They're not going to be making an Inside Out 3, 4, 5, maybe a 6. I see you, Disney.
Lord.
I know you. Well, after doing the research, let me...
Not another Toy Story!
Let me tell you, things are about to get way, way bigger for Inside Out. And if they follow the psychology, one of these emotions might be out of a job. So, loyal theorists, let's get all in our feelings and dive in. First things first, if we're talking about how scientifically accurate things in this film are, obviously we don't have a council of emotions driving our bodies from a control panel like a giant mech suit. Our brains are mushy and gooey and much more complicated than that, and sometimes emotions aren't even the ones in the pilot seat at all. Often, our actions come from central cognition. That's the part of the brain that operates thinking and reasoning, and often comes into conflict with how we're feeling. However, the point of this theory is to try to keep things to the premise of Inside Out, these conflicting emotions inside of Riley's head, deciding what the best thing for her is to do. So we are going to keep that intact and just apply that to other real models of emotions created by real-world science and psychology. Just wanted to make sure that was clarified before we move on. To answer the question of how scientifically accurate Inside Out is, we first need to figure out just how many emotions people have. But there's a bit of a problem with that. Yeah, no one can really seem to agree on just how many emotions there are. Charles Darwin, the evolution guy, mapped out a full 34 emotions. The list's on screen. I am not saying all of these out loud. However, Rene Descartes classified the 6 primary passions to be wonder, love, hate, desire, joy, and sadness. But then if we go all the way back...
3 of those almost seem like they could just be, well, linked up, closed together.
Back to Aristotle, he believed that all emotions could be traced to pleasure and pain, or some combination of the two. As you can tell,
Actually, he
actually
wouldn't be
figuring
wrong.
out what emotions there even are is surprisingly challenging, something that Pixar themselves also discovered while making the movie. The director of the first film, Pete Docter, said that they were surprised at the disagreement in the scientific community about this, and that there were versions
Oh
of
my.
Inside Out that had as many as 26 emotions early on.
Oh
so
my.
how did they get these 24 or so down to the ones we saw in the first movie? Joy, sadness, fear, disgust, and anger? Well, those actually follow some real-world research. In 1980,
Please, go
Professor
on.
Robert Plutchik of the Albert Einstein College of Medicine developed the Plutchik wheel, which defined the core emotions as ecstasy, admiration, terror, amazement,
Oh, wait, but look at the ones outside it. Fear, anger, disgust, and this one must be joy. Oh, but you know what else this looks like? It looks just like the flower that it's on Bing Bong. Hold on. See, look at these side by side. And the flower that Bing Bong is wearing and the flower that the guy created are nearly exact. The only difference is like one color. Those red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purplish pink, but there's no like light green. There's just a dark green. Now that is just something I wanted to point out, because when I saw this, I was like, oh, but then I thought this and I was like, oh.
grief, loathing, rage, and vigilance. This was then later narrowed down even further by psychologist Paul Ekman to joy, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, and surprise. If that list sounds familiar, it should. Ekman was actually
does.
a scientific consultant on Inside Out and helped develop the cast. But already, I'm sure you're seeing some missing characters here. Surprise and amazement, which are kind of the same thing, are in both models, while admiration and vigilance from Plutchik's Circle are nowhere to be seen. Gotta say, there are some missed opportunities here for fun characters. Like, I'm imagining Surprise would just be like a shocked Pikachu meme, just hanging out in headquarters all day. And what would a vigilance character look like? Like some guy in a suit of armor? Or like a paranoid dude with binoculars across the street? Maybe both? We were robbed, Pixar.
Oh, that would
Robbed.
be funny.
Life is hard work. Let Ready Refresh lighten your load. Ready Refresh, essential hydration delivered right to your door.
As I'm in the midst of applying for residency right now, wish me luck, Grammarly has again been a lifesaver with my application.
Regardless, that's what Pixar used as a basis for both Inside Out and its sequel, but these 6 to 8 emotions seem a bit limiting to express yourself, don't they? Humans are able to feel some pretty weird, complicated emotions that don't really boil down to just joy or fear or
He's
whatever, right? And because we want to see just how a scientifically accurate Inside Out would look, I started diving deeper into further studies and research about emotions to see what more we could find. And believe it or not, but I actually found a lot more in Plutchik's work that represents these more complex emotions. See, the Plutchik wheel is a bit more complicated than
That's sadness. I knew she would be under grief. There we are. We got at least, we got all of them. Joy, anger, disgust, sadness, fear. We have the original ones. Oh, wait. That actually is like something. And like, orange, vigilance, anticipation. But when a person anticipates too much, they get anxious. And that's why she's orange. Haha. Amazement, amazement, the surprise, and distraction could be like embarrassment. Oh, but hey, look, there's boredom.
than it looks at first glance because of a system between the spokes of the wheel called dyads. Basically, Plutchik believed that when two emotions are felt together, they create a new sub-emotion that's sort of a mix of the two. For example, when you feel both joy and anger, that would become pride. Fear and disgust would fusion dance to become shame. Joy and sadness would collab on bittersweetness. And hey, that last one is something represented in Inside Out. At the end of the first movie, we see joy and sadness share one of Riley's childhood memories, and it becomes both blue and yellow. That previously happy memory is now bittersweet because it's part of a past that Riley has lost. So that's a bit of a win for the movie here. Though again, I'd love to see them try to design a character that was called bittersweetness. Like, what would that look like? Maybe someone permanently stuck in like a smile cry? So yeah, on the face of it, if we stick to the Plutchik wheel and the Ekman model, there's not a whole lot of deviation we need to make a fully accurate Inside Out. We just need a couple extra main emotions emotions and then more representations of these dyads. However, I have
That'd be it.
to ask, after doing a bunch of research into the different ideas and models behind how we feel emotions, is the Pletchik wheel really the best thing we can do to really represent our scientifically accurate inside out? Are these emotions that Ekman chose really the best ones to show off the complex, wide range of human feeling? As someone with a passion for science, I was skeptical about that, and after doing a bit of digging, I found I wasn't the only one. Turns out, Ekman wasn't the only psychologist who consulted with Pixar for Inside Out. The other, Professor Dacher Keltner of the University of California, Berkeley, actually disagrees with Ekman about what is and isn't an emotion. Specifically, he pointed to love, amusement, and sympathy as hugely important emotions that didn't make the cut for the film. Now, that being said, I can see how amusement would be covered by joy, and you can sympathize with people based on what you feel, right? It's
That'd
not
be like
necessarily
sadness.
connected to its own emotion. I mean, we literally see sadness sympathize with Bing Bong through sadness.
Sounds
Yeah,
amazing
there you
that
go.
Riley liked it.
Oh, she did. We were best friends.
Yeah, it's sad.
I'm okay now.
How did you do that?
I don't know. I was sad, so I listened to what.
Bing Bong felt sad, and Sadness
Yes.
knew what that felt like, so she sympathized. But love? Yeah, I think love is kind of an important emotion that isn't really covered by any of the others. You can love things that make you happy, or sad, or angry, or that you're scared of. So love really should be part of this cast of characters. Maybe it's like a Cupid-looking guy. And this goes even further with the sequel. Like, when I first saw some of the choices for the new cast in Inside Out, it kind of confused me. Like, okay, embarrassment and envy makes sense, I guess, but anxiety? I always thought of anxiety as being more thought-based than feeling-based. Like your mind
It
is racing
kind of
out of
is.
control and you get desperate and need to like throw on some lo-fi to chill yourself out. Oh, and speaking of, if you like the lo-fi that you're listening to right now, this is actually a project that we here at Theorist made called Lore-fi. It's chill beats with a mystery hidden inside
it
it
is.
for all you lore nuts, so go check that out if you're interested. Anyway, based on all of my research, professionals do consider anxiety to be an emotion, so hey, you learn something
Really
new every
now?
day. But even still,
Okay.
anxiety seems more like a subset of fear than its own emotion, doesn't it? They even sort of talk about that in the movie and how
Yeah.
similar fear and anxiety are. Would this actually be a character as important as we see in the movie, with this much power and authority over others? And then there's Ennui. There does seem to be some disagreement within the scientific community about whether this sort of boredom is an emotion, but to me it always seemed more like the absence of an emotion, right? Regardless,
Yes,
even just
that
the
would make
fact that there
sense.
was so much disagreement about the number of emotions here amongst philosophers and psychologists, even ones that worked on Inside Out, it made me pause and wonder what else other professionals had to say about the Ekman model. And after doing some digging, I found this. According to a 2023 study from Scientific Reports, the Pletchik wheel and Ekman's model have some issues when you try to apply them to the real world. They found that while Ekman's model did
What you
help
got?
people who had trouble describing problems with emotions, so stuff like, I take issue with this because it made me mad, or I don't like this because it scares me, for people who were more emotionally mature, who had a better grasp on their emotions or could detect the emotions of others, their feelings rarely lined up with Ekman or Pletchik's work. It was just
Really
too
now?
limiting or too simplistic. There wasn't enough nuance in the emotions represented by the Ekman or Pletchik models for it to actually be useful to them. So
Yeah.
all in all,
Yeah,
that means
okay.
that having the emotions in Riley's head be based on Ekman's model would make sense for her. She's a kid. She's still discovering her emotions and how complex they can be.
Still
and feeling
growing,
two conflicting
yes.
emotions at the same time. Having just a couple of emotions to point to, or maybe combine here or there, works for her. But the older her
Yes.
character gets, the less it's gonna work. See, as children age, the more complex their ability to feel emotions becomes. At birth, many people believe that children can only feel joy, anger, and fear, which then expands out into others like sadness, surprise, etc., etc. But
Yes,
when children
that
hit
makes
puberty,
sense.
their hormones supercharge the part of their brain that allows them to feel emotions, opening the door to a lot more intense and complex feelings. And there are a lot of these different new emotions
is
too,
true.
way more than the 4 that we see added in Inside Out 2. If we want a more scientifically accurate Inside Out, especially moving forward as Riley ages into adulthood, we need a better model to base these characters on, one that's more complex and offers more emotions. Thankfully, there's no shortage of these out there in the world of psychology. Now, there
Oh,
are plenty
boy.
of wheels that offer a wider range of emotions than what Inside Out pulled from, and a lot of these would be good choices to build off of. However, the one that's the best option, in my eyes, this one, the Junto Institute Emotion and Feeling Wheel.
Oh.
This is part of the wheel. Let's zoom out a bit, shall we?
There we
That's better.
Hold on. I actually know what he's talking about. I've seen this wheel expanded so many times. I know it.
Better. The Junto Wheel is a
cool.
tool that helps build self-awareness and empathy, helping people identify more complex emotions that they're feeling by starting out with what it considers the core emotions: joy, love, fear, anger, sadness, and surprise. From there, it expands outward into more specific sub-emotions of these core 6. So, for example, you could be in a good mood, feeling joy or love, but if you wanted to identify a specific reason why, you expand that out into feeling something more specific, like optimism or contentedness or whatever. This wheel is often used in therapy or professional settings to identify complex feelings, and was designed to be the culmination of other similar wheels. But why would we want to use this for Inside Out moving forward over other wheels? Well, professionals often point to one of the major advantages of the Junto Wheel being that it considers love as its own emotion. As we stated earlier, that was something that one of the psychologists Pixar hired to work on Inside Out thought was a hugely important emotion that was missing from the film. Additionally, it offers the most balanced number of what I'm going to call positive and negative emotions, whereas other wheels often skew more heavily to one side or the other. But the biggest thing that the Junto Wheel has over a model like Pletchik's, it can get very, very specific. Like, you thought this was the whole thing? Nah, man, this is the full wheel. In total, we have 108 emotions represented here on the Junto Wheel, and they can get very granular and complex. I also quite like the color coding on this wheel. Many of the more complex sub-emotions have shades of multiple primary emotions in them. Some of them make a lot of sense. There are shades of purple, which is anger on this chart, and emotions categorized under fear or sadness. That checks out, right? They're closer together on the wheel, and a lot of the things that can make you angry can also be sad or scary. But others are way more nuanced, right? Like, there's a tinge of yellow, which is love here, in the opposite emotion, grief. At first glance, that might not make a lot of sense, but I think Andrew Garfield put it the best when he said that grief is just love left unexpressed. Of course, there'd be some yellow in there. And best of all, for our purposes today, almost all of the Inside Out emotions are present or easily slotted in. Anxiety is even a subset of fear, just like we discussed above. However, we do have to talk about the emotional elephant in the room. If we go with this model, the biggest change we're going to have to make to Inside Out is that disgust might be out of her job. Yeah, if you look here, disgust is a subset of anger on the Junto chart.
And so's envy, literally right there above her.
So Pixar might have to send disgust packing. Or, well, maybe not. It's more like she's going to be getting demoted. Because if we apply this new structure to Inside Out to figure out where Inside Out's going in the next installment, what Inside Out 3 is going to look like, well, just like this wheel has different layers, it has a hierarchy in its emotions. That's exactly what Inside Out should be doing. A truly scientifically accurate Inside Out would be like an office complex. At the top, we have these bigger emotions, the head honchos, so to speak, like joy, sadness, anger, fear, love, and surprise. And then under each of them, they would have emotions directly reporting to them. This is actually where disgust would fall, reporting to anger, while other emotions like pride, optimism, shame, and disappointment would also be in this part of the structure. But then, under each of them, they would also have direct reports. Hope and eagerness would report to optimism. Guilt and regret would report to shame. So on and so forth, etc., etc.
There's a whole way of doing it, but damn, would you need a lot of time.
Oh yeah, like so much of real life, the emotions in Riley's head and Inside Out would be like an office building, complete with different departments and a bunch of bureaucracy. I wonder what human resources would be in this case. If I were a betting man, Inside Out 3 is going to be dealing with exactly this. The more and more emotions get added to Riley's head, the more and more complex the structure is going to become. Our core cast of emotions are going to be getting more and more responsibilities, more and more emotions looking to them for guidance. And that's going to add a lot of stress to them. And then when Riley encounters the big emotional conflict of this movie, which will probably be either going to college or the death of one of her parents, things are going to fall apart as this huge complex of emotions tries to deal with that. On paper, maybe that doesn't sound super exciting, but this is Pixar we're talking about. If anyone's going to make me cry at a bunch of emotions filing paperwork, it's them. But hey, did you know they're making an Inside Out spin-off show for Disney Plus all about how Riley's dreams are made? It's going to be like a little movie studio in her head, which made me wonder, how are they going to handle teleprompters? Is that just me? Am I the only one who thinks about those sorts of things? Regardless, there wouldn't be a better choice for them than the sponsor of today's episode, Prompter People.
Hold on, let me just take a look. And that's it. Alright everyone, that's going to be the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed this. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original will be in the description below. And I'll see all of y'all next time when we flick back on. Till then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.